So, Greg,
So, Jennifer,
a couple days ago, you went to a doctor's appointment with me. This was a highly anticipated doctor's appointment, my first ever sit-down meeting with a cardiologist to go over everything, all the tests that they have subjected me to. And let me tell you, now I can finally tell you what I wanted to tell you when I had some of my testing done earlier this year.
wait, tell me?
Yeah, it
Like
was just
you're
a
gonna tell
cool,
me you're
a
gonna tell
cool
me
moment.
something that I don't know
Yeah,
already?
yeah.
Okay.
You
When you had
ready?
all your testing done, you mean like your stress test and all that?
About a week ago, I had to basically finalize the rest of the cardiology tests. I did a stress test on a treadmill, which was a fun experience. I didn't know what to expect there, but I was kind of, not to toot my own horn, but I was pretty good on walking on a treadmill, okay?
Although
I knew how to do
those-
incline walking.
those 54 years of taking steps finally paid
It
off.
finally paid off at a time such as this. So, but after that, no, actually, right before that stress test, which now I know why they call it that. It really lives up to its name. I had an echocardiogram and an ultrasound of my carotid artery, which I'm laying down in this exam room, and the ultrasound technician was, running the probe, whatever that ultrasound probe thing is, up and down my neck, and I could not see the screen that she could see. So, it wasn't really all that exciting to me. It's like, well, there's the nice view of the ceiling, and I'll just be still and lay down however I need to get this done. But the echocardiogram is another ultrasound test where they rub that probing all kind of like different parts of your rib cage so that they can get a visual of your heart. And the ultrasound allows them to see the flapping of the ventricular valves so they can watch how they're opening and closing to see how the blood flows from chamber to chamber. You have 4 chambers in your heart.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah. Don't you remember learning that basic human anatomy
I'm
for
waiting,
biology
I'm
class?
waiting for you to get to the part of like what I don't know.
What was really amazing to me and what I was not emotionally prepared for was seeing my heart on the screen.
No.
Because
On the ultrasound.
yes,
Yeah.
I have heard about my heart my whole life, okay? I talk about it. I wonder about it. I try to visualize what it actually looks like, but it's not actually an organ that you get to see. You can go your whole life
Yeah.
and never actually see what your actual heart looks like. I saw the heart of Jennifer Willits on that screen, and it kind of took my breath away
I believe
to see my heart.
It would have that kind of impact on you. Because that's the kind of thing that you get really excited by, those kinds of things. And I have to manufacture the excitement. I'd be like, oh, I don't think I would go crazy nuts over excited over seeing. I mean, I think
Now,
I would see it.
Why do you think I'm excited?
You just always get that's in your wheelhouse. When there's something you like, you like seeing things that you don't get to see very often. Go to an event, sightseeing, on vacations, you want to hit every single stinking thing to see in wherever it is that we're visiting.
Okay.
And whereas I'm like, hotel room, beach, good to go. I mean, I just don't get excited over sightseeing as much. And so seeing the sights even of your body, there's a correlation there.
When I was confronted with the image of my own heart, and then I could hear it. So I'm hearing the sound of the blood pumping in and out. So you can hear the heartbeat. And I'm seeing now what corresponds to the sound, which I've never seen before. So yes, while on one level, it's just fascinating, like on a scientific, biology thing. But the other thing that really struck me was in light of my Catholic faith, where I am in my journey, with all this recent devotion towards the Sacred Heart of Jesus, the Immaculate Heart of Mary, I'm looking at basically their heart because it's what their heart actually looks like. Not just a painting of it, not just a drawing of it. I'm seeing the human heart that he created and put in me, but it's the same that he has in him, and it's the same that she has in hers. And so it became so powerful to me that I got teary-eyed,
No,
and
well,
I'm like, this is beautiful. It is just in awe. And I was like, how talking to the technician, like, how do you do this every day? I mean, like, it's nothing to her. Like, this is just part of her job. She sees 30, 40 hearts a day, every day for years, and she just gets all technical with what she's looking for. But I was seeing something, I think, greater and more beautiful. And it was just an unexpected joy in that moment, just an extra contemplation, an extra layer that I was able to apply my Catholic faith to it so that it would be more than just a scientific marvel, more than like, look at what God created and how that heart muscle just does this one action repeatedly until the day you die. From the moment your heart can beat in the conception in your mother's womb until the date of whenever the Lord calls you home, that heart never stops beating if it's healthy and free of disease. And just to sit in awe of that, just like, wow, take a moment, take a beat. We say in theater, take a beat, okay? You're going to take one. You're going to sit and you're going to think about this and appreciate it. So that was super cool. Now, fast forward to the actual follow-up. Everything was great.
So
My heart is great.
Was the nurse surprised that you were getting emotional over that?
The technician, I think she was a little affected, and she also was yes, it is actually a very cool job that I have. I love my job. She actually said, I do love what I do. I was like, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Okay.
But the good news is my heart is in great shape. So in terms of
so for
that
people,
event from
people watching this for the first time, if you go back a few months of the show, we actually played a 911 call because we had a major scare and we thought that something was majorly wrong with you. So what's frustrating about the whole thing is because your heart's fine, you had some syncope episode is all they can say. You fainted. That's all it ended up being. We don't know why you fainted. We don't know what caused you to keep passing out that night, but you did. You woke up in the middle of the night. You passed out on the floor, face down. So it's frustrating to me because I just don't like not knowing a conclusive answer of something. But you've done everything. You have a baseline now. If it ever happens again, we know all you're supposed to do is just lay down. Put your feet up. Lay down.
Right.
Okay. That's just...
But the doctor, the cardiologist did affirm you in that when you see a patient or your loved one go down from a syncope event, there are a few seconds where you don't know it's syncope. There are a few seconds where you have to at least entertain the idea that CPR might be the next move here because the heart stopped and the person is truly dead. Because in that moment, it looks the same. In that moment, when the person goes down, you don't know why because you just see the outside. So he understood your grave concern. He, as a cardiologist, has felt that very thing and has seen it in his office multiple times. So he knows how serious it is. And so he was reaffirming to us that we made the right move to go see him. Because to
go to the ER.
Yeah, and to go. I felt like I'm wasting his time. Like, oh, I'm healthy. I'm too young. I'm not 50, but I'm on the younger
How old are you going to be this
side.
year?
I'll be older than 50. And not yet 60. So I'm in between 50 and 60 in that gray area there. Get it? I'm in the gray. Anyway, I digress. But he did say your blood pressure is a little lower. It's still normal, but it's on the low end of normal. So you actually need like a lot of salt. Like increase your sodium intake because you're not in hypertension, because you're not in renal failure. You can load up on sodium. And that will actually help you in a great way to increase your blood volume, to be truly hydrated and stay hydrated. So now I'm like trying to like research DIY electrolyte recipes so I can make my own. healthier electrolyte drinks. So, hey, dear listener, if you have a favorite electrolyte recipe, I can't even say it right. You're making fun of me because I'm saying it wrong.
I'm making fun of you because you're asking for electrolyte recipes from our vast audience of electrolyte recipe gatherers.
But they might be. They might be. Because just in case, all I need is one really good one. I'm trying to like make up stuff now and just get my salts in.
Well, while we're
to
putting
feel
out
better.
requests from all of you people who grow artichokes during the
Go ahead, finish this. See where it takes you.
I'm just trying to think of like some recreational type thing that people can give us advice on. See what I just did there? I'm trying to tie it in.
You asked for a WordPress professional on the last show.
Well, that's because
I'm asking for a recipe gatherer on this
No.
one.
I think finding a professional WordPress developer is a lot more likely from our audience base than electrolyte recipe gatherers. And I'm sure you're probably going to get like 20 electrolyte recipes just to prove me wrong now. So I was trying to make a transition to our topic of recreation when I said the artichoke
Not just recreation,
but holy recreation.
Holy.
So what is holy recreation?
I like to I would like to replace one of those words with leisure.
Leisure.
Holy leisure. This is something that either you're really good at it or you're really bad at it. And that's been me for like a super long time, not knowing what to do with either the silence that I'm encountering a little more frequently at this season in my life, or the not having a hobby. I'm just a more analytical person. I'm administrative by nature. I'm a numbers gal. I do financial stuff and accounting. So in my downtime, I was like, well, I'll just do work, I guess, because I don't really know what else to do with myself. And I'm reading more, so I'm reading some really great books. So that has increased as of late in my life. So that's good. That's an example of holy leisure.
But I think you need to go back a second because you started to say something and then you buried, as Mac would say, buried the lead a little bit. You have had struggles over the years of wanting to find your thing. What is my thing? And it's a thing that's outside of work. It's outside of motherhood. It's outside of being a wife. It's that thing that would somehow bring you a level of joy. And
it's that thing you do.
It's that thing that you do. You doing that thing that you do. The idea, and I don't know why it became such a strong idea for you, that you were missing something.
Because
right?
I see what you do. You have a creative side where you can turn to art when you're ready to turn to art. And you can paint really well. You can turn to the piano and play the piano because you play the piano really well. You can turn to the guitar when you are ready to play the guitar, and you do that well.
By the way,
writing poetry, writing novels, you have things that are independent activities that you do that tap into a skill set and a love and a passion that you have.
So you mentioned drawing. I just drew like a different version of you as you were talking. I like to doodle when I'm listening. I think it's kind of cute. What do you think? It's a little different.
It is different.
It's not exactly you, but it's got it's the essence of you.
It's Jennifer adjacent.
Jennifer adjacent. It needs a little bit of work, but I was like, that's a different take on drawing you that is a little bit better than the ones I've done in the past.
Tweak the eyebrows a little bit.
I was trying to make you good, like questionable, right?
Yes, I got that. You emoted me very well. In my pursuit of finding my thing, and I wasn't making good progress on this at all, the Lord has provided through a friend, a dear friend.
I'm going to interrupt you again.
Okay.
Well, no, because you know how I am. I want our stories to apply to the people listening right now, right?
Yeah.
And I want to talk a little bit about we talked about your struggle. Was like you saw me doing those things. You wanted a thing. You've seen our kids get into certain activities. You've wanted a thing. When you were younger, you danced. And for many years, you longed to have a space where you could dance again. You also played cello when you were younger. You longed to play that again until, old woman wrists made you realize that you can't play cello anymore. You tried to do it again when we lived in Indiana. I think what I would love to come out of this conversation is not just sort of a rehashing of a way that you have found a level of holy leisure, but I'd like to talk about the benefits of holy leisure, particularly for those like you that are listening or watching that have struggled to find it. What are some of the ways that you allowed yourself to just accept when you didn't have something to do? You know, how did you deal with that stress? And then how did you actually take steps to find something? I think that that's kind of interesting rather than just jumping to the thing that you're doing.
Basically, what I had been doing is what I knew to do, which was to read. And that was a way that I would get through my holy leisure time.
Like fiction or what?
Yeah, it was mostly fiction works of the classical backgrounds. And I'm in this book club, which really helps to keep me accountable. And it puts a little positive pressure on me to actually finish the book in a timely manner so that I can discuss it. So that actually makes it work for me. If it was just completely up to me, I know I would flounder. I would maybe just read a third of the book and then conveniently not go back to it. And while that would be okay, I still felt the whole, because there are times when I just don't want to read. Like, my brain is not in that headspace. I don't have the concentration. I need a more passive activity, perhaps. I think we've all can identify when we have energy for certain things, which is probably why we go to Netflix maybe more than we should, because we see it as a passive activity. I need to decompress, so click, we go for the remote. I wanted something to compete with that, perhaps. And so what really surprised me is how sometimes it's about paying attention to the opportunities that could be offered to you, like out of the clear blue, which was something that was in a way my path into finding something wonderful. And our good friend Catherine Barron, she's co-host of Catholic in a Small Town with her husband Mac. She surprised me by offering me to be a part of a knitting class for free. You know, like that would be her Christmas gift to me. And I'm like, knitting? Okay, sure, I'll try it. I mean, I had no opinion whatsoever, but I felt a tug in my heart to be open and just see where it goes. So I think being open is key, being flexible. Don't be so quick to say no. It's like, well, I don't like that thing, therefore I won't do it. But I could identify no issues, no problems, no red flags, nothing. It's like, well, then I should say yes to this opportunity that came my way. And things didn't kind of go the way that she expected. And it turns out an even better method was waiting for us. And that was to get another friend, a supporter to Rosary Army, our good friend Sarah, who we're very lucky that she lives near us. She is very, very good in these craft of knitting and sewing and quilting. She's like an expert. And she agreed to give us a private lesson. And we had the best time sort of sitting there trying to be good pupils for her to really learn this so that we can kind of go off on our own and see if we can, carry our knowledge that she transmitted to us so that we could be knitters, just to actually knit something of value. And she did a great job teaching us. And Catherine and I, we did our best to just focus and learn this thing. But we can only do what we could do with where we were in the journey. Like, you're only going to be as attentive as you could be in that moment. And I was getting things, but she was getting things. It's like, okay, well, together we can help each other out because our teacher is leaving and we're going to have to make this work. What I did not expect was how awesome knitting actually is for me personally. I was feeling things that I didn't even think was possible for me to feel. And I'm just doing
like
something
what? Like what things?
with my hands.
Like what things are you feeling that you didn't think were possible for you to feel?
Kind of like an awakening of something very, very deep in my soul. Of like I was tapping into creative power almost.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it like that, I wonder if do you ever feel that way when you create art? You are participating with the creator who created you, and now you are creating something else. So you are in alignment with the creator by being procreative in that act. And so knitting is in that category. It kind of taps into the same feeling of I am actually creating something out of something that God made, natural fibers, right? And I'm making something good that could theoretically outlive me, short of being destroyed by fire or something like that. But
Sure.
it has the potential to be lasting, not temporary, not fleeting, but lasting. It's true, it's real, it's good. There's a beauty to it. And it just felt so good for me to be tapped into an activity that nourishes those very themes, which I think is it's deeply Christian, deeply beautiful, deeply Catholic.
Let's linger on that, because I think that you touched on things that maybe you didn't intend to touch on that are the most important things. So Pope John Paul II, he wrote a letter to artists at one point, and he mentioned that idea of, like, for artists, right, that when you create, you are using a skill. God has given you a creative skill that was given to you by the Creator. And so you are having an opportunity to go deeper, as you said, to use these skills to create something beautiful. Now, that's only part of it, though, because that beautiful thing has the potential of impacting, as you said, it lives on past you. But why? Why does something live on past you? Because it impacts the lives of others. And those are the best forms. You know, when you think of the holy leisure, is that the purpose of holy leisure? And I wish I had a document, or a church document or something that actually speaks to this. So this is all just sort of opinion and working it out ourselves.
Well, we talked about it at school in our teacher meeting. Activities that you do with your time that lead you to God.
Say it again. Activities that what?
That lead you to God.
No. There's
activities. How you spend your time. The actual ways that you choose to spend your time. That activity.
Okay.
That leads you to God.
So I would say that that's part of it. And then from the artist's perspective, the
maybe
idea,
not directly, but it.
The idea of creating something that would last long term. Like, so right next to you, we have a replica of the Pieta. Now it was his Michelangelo's job to make these things, right? So he made that thing, and even put his signature across the ribbon across Mary's chest. Right behind you, there's a painting I did that was based off of another painting that people may recognize from The Secret of the Rosary. You asked me, do I ever feel connected to God when I do it? We have a lot of things in here that I actually did paint. And I would say in those moments, because they're on the wall, then yes, I did feel that connection. But that connection doesn't happen all the time, because we also have a stack of my paintings on a shelf in the garage that eventually I'm going to throw away, burn, or something, right? That aren't very good, or they're not very memorable. Not everything evokes the Pieta, right? Not everything evokes the Sacred Heart of Jesus. But I think what's interesting is, you talked about wanting to have this thing of yours. For me, I have a flip-flop, which is too many things that I wouldn't say I'm expert at, but occasionally God does make an appearance. I would say most of the things I do are mediocre, but every once in a while, inspiration does hit, and I'll do something, and I'm very aware I'm not quite sure how I did that on my own, and I don't think I did. So I've shared the story of, like, my book, The New Evangelization in You, Be Not Afraid. And I wrote that book, and it was published, and I always have had this fear of, when I finally get something published, that I'm going to discover a typo in the final manuscript once it's already in print. And so even after I've written a book and I've gone through it a million times, when I get the final one, I'll still read my own book, trying to find the errors. And I remember sitting on our front porch in Colorado right after that book was published, and I'm reading the book, and I read something in it, and I was like, that was so amazingly impactful and good. It was so well written. It was such an insightful thing. I was convinced in that moment I did not write that. I'm like, an editor added it at the publisher. Someone else put that paragraph in there because I don't have the capacity for what was there. It was so theologically rich and everything that I literally got up off of our porch, put the book down, got up, went inside, got my laptop, went and found the draft that I sent to the publisher, did a search for that passage, and there it was. That's, to me, now again, I had a task in writing that book. That wasn't leisure, but when I write, every once in a while I'll go back and look at something. I'm like, I'm shocked when I see God there. And like I have not painted a lot in the last few years because a lot of times when I sit down and paint, it's just like, ugh, I don't like it. I don't like what's coming out. I don't like if I can't see it right at the beginning, I don't like it. This thing right behind me, and I apologize for the people that are just listening. But I have a new one on the wall, and it's not finished. If you zoom in, you can see I'm not finished, but I went ahead. I wanted to get something to fill in that space on the wall, and I figured from a distance, people can't tell it's not finished anyway. But I had an idea of taking old Magnificat or Benedictus covers from the magazines, and could I make I've just been kind of interested in playing with mixed media, and I don't really know how to do it yet. But I thought I'd like to do something like that. And I had an idea of like doing those and making them look like they were tiles, not a mosaic, but like actual big tiles somehow attached, and painting so it looks like that. And from a distance, I feel like it looks like it. If you get up too close, then the illusion is ruined because the lines are pretty jagged. But when the first time that I did the lines and I got these covers down on the canvas and I did some other stuff, I didn't know what I was doing. And then when I finished it, and I pulled off some tape because I was trying to make a straight line, which also didn't work. And I stepped back and I like put a shadow underneath it and a highlight on the other corners. And I stepped back and I looked at it. I was really surprised because it has a little bit of a 3D look that I don't know how I pulled it off. And I'm like, so in that moment, again, when I do something that I don't know how I did it, within a holy leisure creative thing, it's because, like you have tried with a lot of things in the past, you tried the cello, you tried the dancing, you tried to bring those things back, and they didn't fit at that time because that time was no longer there. It was time for something else. And even now with what you're doing now you're feeling a connection. And so it's sort of like this constant, it's just like our relationship with God, right? We have to constantly be seeking out a way of allowing the Creator to use us to create more. And for some people, it's something that's very visible to a large amount of people, and other people, it's something small. And so I think that brings us now to, you had this ongoing search, and you found something that for this season is really resonating. It's hitting that deep connective place. And I think that that's kind of the lesson for people, right? It's like, we can sit and just be passive and you've mentioned just watch Netflix. Lent is coming up, right? Or maybe when you're watching this, Lent's already here or it's past. But we have these periods where in our lives where we can give up something, where we can just say, you know what, I'm not going to do I won't say unholy leisure. It's not necessarily unholy to watch YouTube, but the things that are kind of taking precedence in my life, I'm going to let those things go a little bit. I'm going to give up something that maybe isn't feeding me as well, so that there's more room for the other good things. I actually think, you said you've been doing a lot more reading. Sometimes one thing can lead to another without there being a clear, direct connection. I think you reading has taught you subconsciously to slow down again. Because had you started knitting before reading, I don't know if you could do the knitting.
Well, that's a fair point. And there is a stillness, a physical stillness that this is forcing me to reconcile with.
And a making of time for something that may not seem as widely important, right? So slowing down in stillness, making the time.
It's quiet. This is a quiet activity.
Allowing the quiet to sink in.
Yeah.
I think all these do go into artistic endeavors, which I've often said how selfish it seems to me for me to go off and write. How selfish it is for me to go off and paint. And that's a completely erroneous way of looking at things. That'd be like me saying, how selfish of you to go off and read. How selfish of you to go. Because if we do believe everything that we've just talked about of when we create, we're creating with the Creator. Well, bring it back to holy leisure. Holy leisure could be doing jigsaw puzzles. Holy leisure could, I mean, go back to your definition. What was your definition that you got at the school?
Activities that you do that can lead you to God. And actually playing family board games was in there because you're fostering that community, that connection with one another. You're talking to one another. And you're all focused on one thing. So it kind of frees up the mind to have a conversation that is sometimes awkward and difficult to do in the absence of a centralized activity, which is the same thing of a family meal even. That's another holy leisure kind of an activity. So one of the beautiful benefits of knitting is the portability of it. I realized, I could take this to school with me. I figured out how to stand and knit to try to get away from always having to be parked in a chair. But there are times when that's really the preferred way. You want to sit and just sort of let your craft sort of spill over you as you knit it together. But I can stand right now at this, where I am in this project, and students can see me knitting, other teachers, and it's the conversations that are coming up from this that are actually kind of cool, but also revealing to me what happens in a woman's life when a woman say, I used to knit, I was into doing this and that, and then I got busy and I put my needles away and I just don't have the time. And, this is what I'm hearing now, that a woman kind of came to it, loved it, kind of got into the addictiveness of it, and then she got knocked off. And then it went to the wayside. So I know
which might happen to you.
Yes. And I know that does in fact happen with this. And so I've talked to a lot of women who's like, yeah, I know how to knit, but I'm not knitting right now. I'm like, oh, well, that could happen to me, to your point. Like something could bump me off, but it will be there and I could always relearn it. But it's great that it is really helping me to be spiritual, quite honestly. My mind is free to think about a great many things about the relationships in my life, what I could do better. How can I try to carry Christ to every person that I come into contact with? What am I doing there? And the other kind of natural, beautiful reflection that knitting can sort of reveal is when you are knitting in a season, the project that you're creating is kind of like recording what's happening in your life at that moment. So I'm knitting a scarf, a beginner scarf project at a very particular point in my life. And it is sort of a witness to the things that's happening to me. And there are imperfections in this scarf because it's my first one. And I don't want to undo it and redo it so I can have a perfect first scarf. I want the imperfections because that's actually true for me right now. That's part of my story, is seeing this crooked journey become straight. And I love that this scarf will be like a badge of honor by the time it is done. And it's an unrepeatable event. There's only one first scarf. There will be others, but there's only one first. And to pay attention to the firsts in your life, just because you don't always know when the last one will be.
Yeah. So show us your scarf.
Okay.
What you got going?
Well, this was fabulous first project. It's called a kind of a section scarf where every 6 inches I have to learn a new knitting pattern so that I will get a different design from the yarn and it will have a very different look to it. And so it is challenging in all the best of ways. So I'm now about 2.5 feet in. This will be about 5 to 6 feet long when I'm done. And it is great exercise for my brain. I'm having to focus in ways that I didn't think I was going to have to focus. I have to be aware of what I'm doing all the time and notice, like with twine, like here we are with Rosary Army, we're teaching people how to make all twine knotted rosaries. And many times we have instructed and encouraged our rosary makers, learn your twine, like know what happens when you tug on the right. What is the consequence of that action? What happens if you pull in the opposite direction? You're going to get a result. The twine is going to do certain things. I have to take those same concepts and apply it now to this type of twine in the form of yarn. And so it just sort of fits. It fits with what we do, where we make them, pray them, and give them away. And maybe this is why this feels so fitting to me. It's something I can make. I could pray over it, about it, and through it, and then ultimately give it away. It's and bring love to someone else. And so I'm really proud of what I've done so far. I'm holding it up.
It looks good
to this camera.
I'm very proud of you for doing it. I said to you when you started going, and even before you went over to get your lesson with Sarah and Catherine, that I actually thought, it's like, you know what? I know it's weird for a guy who looks like me, but I think I would be interested. And I kept thinking, but I absolutely don't want to do it. Because I always love trying some new creative thing, right? Yeah. But I'm like, I could kind of sense that this might click with you. And it means a lot to me to see you slow down and to see you be more reflective and to see you take more time to read and to allow those things to seep into your brain, because you are such a busy person. And I kind of just sensed that this would be a thing, and I didn't want to for it to ever form into a competition or something that would take away from the enjoy. No, I know you said poo-poo it and my statement, but
I appreciate. But
I want it. Basically, I want you to have your thing. It's very important. I've watched for years, waiting for you to find your thing, and even if this is a thing for just a year, I hope it lasts longer than that. I would love to see. I would love to see what you can do in the long run. But
I have so many goals.
I think the idea of that holy leisure, that long-term seeking of things, that I can see that it's resonating in a deep way. And while I think a lot of people would hesitate to call themselves artists, I think we are all created by the Creator, and the Creator has given each of us a certain level of creating ability. It may be large or small. And to discount that idea that God would infuse within you a touch of his creativity is to discount God's ability to change anything in us. And so I think that if you're listening or watching and your first thought is like, I'm not creative, then ask the Creator to show you where you could be creative, because you might just be right around the corner from a new form of holy leisure, of some enjoyable activity that's going to lead you closer to God. So I think it was worth talking about.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, for hanging out with us. If you'd like a free rosary that someone has made creatively just for you, an all-try-knotted rosary, go to rosaryarmy.com. If you want to support our work, rosaryarmy.com/donate. As always, make them,
pray them,
and give them away. God bless, folks.